Illinois and Indiana are ranked higher than Michigan. Iowa just beat Washington. Does that mean Michigan is done for this season? Likely Corso says, not so fast. We'll discuss coming up next. Welcome to the Point a Minute show on Michigan football at the voice of college football, where we average one outstanding point for every minute of video. My name is Cliff. His name is Mac. Let's get into it. Michigan, as we all know, has been struggling this season. Even their wins haven't been all that convincing. We've been optimistic, believing that Michigan was going to turn the corner any game now, but this weekend may have changed that. Iowa beat Michigan 40-16, where a week earlier, Michigan lost to Washington 27-17. What does that mean for the rest of Michigan's season? One thing to note is that 3 of Michigan's starters were out with injuries, along with several key players. Mac, my question to you, will those players be back, and will they make a difference in this upcoming Illinois game?
Yeah, it sounds like Sharon Moore is confident that they'll be back for the Illinois game. Apart from Jaden McBurrows, it sounds like he's out indefinitely. Not really sure what he's working through, but they don't have a timeline for his return just yet, unfortunately. So big blow there, but for the most part, everybody else should be back. And so, okay, as much as I don't think that a moral victory should be a thing for Michigan coming off a national championship, I'm gonna kind of make a left turn here, and I promise the point will make sense. Michigan did play shorthanded against Washington, and they will have the majority of those injured back for what looks to be a pretty tough game against Illinois. Although maybe if second half Purdue Illinois shows up.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll go a little bit better than we think. I think getting those players back along with Jack Tuttle at quarterback might help Michigan get something of a spark, especially on the offensive line. We'll talk about that a little bit more here in a bit. But I think if that happens, Michigan can beat a ranked team on the road, and all of a sudden the season starts to look just a little bit different. Whereas a couple of weeks ago we were thinking, we barely beat USC, but that's, USC was a ranked win at that point. They were number 11 at the time. It was a good win. We thought USC is obviously struggling now. Michigan loses on the road at Washington, and we're all kind of wondering what's going on exactly. Michigan might be a lot worse than we think they are, especially with how badly they struggled against Washington. That being said, it seemed like they kind of figured something out with Jack Tuttle at quarterback. The offensive line seems to like him. I think that with a win at Illinois, which I think is, oh man, do I go so far as to say it's likely? I think it's a strong possibility. But I think with a win at Illinois with these players back, things start to really look different for Michigan down the stretch.
How confident is Sharon Moore with Jack Tuttle at QB?
It sounds like he's pretty confident. I guess the players are all referring to Jack Tuttle as Uncle Jack because he's so old. Which is really funny because, I'm older than Jack Tuttle. So.
All right. He is a 7th-year senior, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm still older than him.
Well, sure.
So, I mean, okay, so they're calling him Uncle Jack, and that's because he's got experience, obviously, and that's really starting to help provide this offense with some much-needed stability. I think that stability is really what Michigan needs at this point to get their feet back under them and maybe get some confidence going too. I am kind of curious to know what things would have looked like had Jack Tuttle been the starting QB since day one. I think Michigan almost definitely still loses to Texas, but would it have been a closer game? Would there have been as many turnovers? Maybe they take Texas to the fourth quarter and Texas ekes it out. I don't know. Maybe not ekes it out, wins by a couple scores, but maybe it's closer than it was. Would they have beaten Washington with Jack Tuttle as the starter? I kind of think, yeah. I think that Michigan doesn't go to a 14-0 deficit, although they did overcome that. And some mistakes down the stretch didn't obviously help anything. But I think with Jack Tuttle, if he had started that game, maybe Michigan gets their feet under them a little bit sooner, and then the game is out of reach. So when Washington starts that second half resurgence, Michigan is still up by quite a bit. I don't know. These are just, these are questions that we'll never actually know the answer to, but it does seem like Sharon Moore thinks that they're onto something with Jack Tuttle under center. And the players seem to think that too. You've got Josh Preby saying that the line felt calm. They found a sense of calmness when Jack Tuttle entered the huddle, just thanks to his poise and demeanor. He said you couldn't really explain what it was like. You had to be there to really understand it. But it was like when Jack Tuttle entered the huddle, they were like, okay, we're down 14-0, but it just feels like everything's okay. So Jack Tuttle definitely seems to be like that type of calm leader that the guys really need right now.
Yeah, it almost makes you wonder. Maybe Jack Tuttle was actually supposed to be QB1 all along, but then he got injured. And
that does seem to be the
scramble.
Yeah, that does seem to be the consensus, is that everyone's pretty much saying that it sounds like Jack Tuttle, based on what we know now, probably was intended to be the starter, but obviously got injured and wasn't able to practice over the spring and had limited snaps over fall. And obviously hasn't seen game time until Washington. So I think that was probably the intention, was for him to start.
Now, we saw a lot of leakage in the O-line when Davis Warren was the QB, that they were breaking through and getting a lot of pressure on Davis Warren. They kind of tightened up with Orji at quarterback. How is the O-line adapting to Tuttle, as far as you know?
I mean, in terms of actual gameplay, I think Tuttle brings, like I said, Tuttle brings stability. He brings experience. He brings a somewhat downfield passing threat. And I think that's going to take some pressure off of the offensive line. Now, on a personal level, it sounds like they love him. I think, like I just said, Tuttle offers that stability, even if he isn't, another JJ McCarthy. He is perhaps still good enough that defenses won't be blitzing every play, and the offensive line can maybe have some pressure taken off of them because of that. So I think overall, having Jack Tuttle as that more stable presence, despite his lower ceiling, it does help Michigan in the long term, since, they don't really need a dynamic quarterback to be successful on offense. They don't necessarily need an Alex Orji, although Alex Orji would have been great had he been able to complete a pass.
That does help.
It helps, we talk a lot about 2021's offense, with Cade McNamara. Cade McNamara wasn't exactly the most dynamic quarterback, but he could take care of the ball and throw very, very well. He was great at that.
And he's doing good things at Iowa now.
You like to see it. That's what this offense needs. They need another Cade McNamara. Is Jack Tuttle's ceiling as high as it was as Cade McNamara's, which is kind of an odd thing to think about if you think about Cade McNamara having a ceiling. I don't know. I do know that Michigan can take stability at quarterback and apply their dominant run game to it and have an offense that can score 30, 40 points a game if you let it. If they wear a defense down enough, if they stay on the field long enough, they can start to run away with games. Not necessarily quickly, but those second halves, they generally take over because of that. Is that the type of presence that Jack Tuttle offers? Does he offer stability in a way that makes defenses have to stay on the field longer? That's going to be the question coming down the stretch. So does it mean that Michigan beats Oregon and Ohio State? No, probably not. I think that they're too good. Does it at least mean that Michigan wins the games that they, should win? Yeah, I think so. I think that they'll beat Illinois. I know Indiana's playing really well, and I've made some maybe ill-informed comments about Indiana possibly maybe kind of going toe-to-toe with Ohio State. So anyway, but
you did make those comments.
I made those comments, not on this channel.
To be reminded of them.
I'm probably going to be reminded of those comments. Oh, so much regret. Anyway, but I think realistically speaking, Michigan has a good shot at winning the games that they should win coming down the stretch, and that means that we're looking at a season of about 8-4. Maybe they're in the top 20 somewhere, depending on how the top 20 shakes out. They did lose to who is currently the number 1, 2, and 3 teams in the nation. Although I haven't seen the latest top 25. I don't know where Oregon and Ohio State shake out. But they're good losses.
Oregon is 2, Ohio State is 4, Penn State is at 3.
Okay, so Michigan has losses to the number 1 and likely number 2 and 4 teams in the nation by season's end. So is that awful? No, not at all. Does it suck considering Michigan came off a natty? For sure. But you never know. One of the other things I was going to say is that this team still has a lot of talent, and especially on defense. And I get how this is going to sound. I really do. But I mean, if Michigan can go into the Oregon game with confidence and no more losses, the game's at home. Maybe something crazy happens. Maybe. I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying it should. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm saying it'll take a miracle, but you never know.
Well, okay, on the side of miracles, Michigan's strength of schedule has only gotten tougher as the season has progressed now.
Mm-hmm.
So they're out of their, what they have 6 games left. Out of those 6 games, 4 of them are now ranked teams: Oregon, Indiana, Illinois, and Ohio State. And one of the other 2 is Michigan State, which, as we know, is always a brutal game, regardless of how Michigan State is doing. I know last year they crushed them, but last year they were a program in disarray. This year they're not so much in disarray. Should we be concerned? I know you just said 8-4, but I mean, should we be concerned that Michigan might not even make it to a bowl game if this Illinois game doesn't go in their favor?
Yeah. Well, okay. So yeah, I mean, if Michigan loses to Illinois, then who's left? Michigan State and Rutgers, I think.
Well, after that, you've got Oregon, Michigan State, Indiana, Ohio State, and it's either Rutgers or Maryland.
I'm pretty sure it's Rutgers, but now that I've said that, I feel like it's wrong. I'll just refresh my memory real quick while we're talking here. Right. I think if Michigan loses to Illinois, then yeah, you've got to start asking some questions. I mean, Illinois' got a good team this year for sure. That second half against Purdue is questionable for sure. Not really sure what was going on there. Purdue had their second string quarterback in. I didn't get eyes on the game, so I'm not entirely sure what happened. I do know though that Michigan can at least hang with them defensively. And so it'll be a tough game for sure, but I think Michigan is still the stronger team if we're just talking defense. They do get those starters back, so I think Michigan can definitely win that. If they lose, though, they've got Michigan State and Northwestern, not Rutgers. They play Northwestern.
Yeah.
Those are 2 very likely wins, even if Michigan loses to Illinois in my book. So at that point, Michigan goes 6-6. They make a bowl game. So worried? I don't know. I mean, if they lose to Illinois, there's still 2 very good and likely chances of Michigan getting to bowl eligibility, but worried? I think more just kind of disgusted.
Yeah, not a fun place to be as a Michigan fan this year, coming off a natty. And even the last 3 years have just been fantastic.
Yeah.
But let's leave it right there. What do you think about what we think? Leave us a comment in the comments section below this video. You can also find us on X. My handle is DAWG Team Rivalry. Mac's handle is B1G Team Rivalry. Stop by, give us a follow, give us a what do you call that? A tweet, a post.
Shout out.
It's not really a tweet anymore, though. It's on X. Anyway, you know what to do. If you want more great analysis on college football, check out all the shows right here on Michigan Football at the Voice of College Football and all across the Voice of College Football Network. You can also catch Mac and I live at 8 p.m. on our channel, which is at Team Rivalry. Monday nights at 8, we are live. Join us there. Mac, take us out.
This is the Point a Minute Show on the Voice of College Football.